at the end of regulation. They couldn't do it. DeJounte Murray tied it. Steph Curry goes for 60, and it won't be enough as the Atlanta Hawks have won 4 in a row. And the Warriors 4-19 now in their last 23 overtime games. 11 straight overtime losses away from home. And so 141-134 the final in OT. And the road trip will continue to Brooklyn.
And the Warriors unable to make it 2 in a row on the road and 3 in a row overall as we welcome you in to Dubs OT with JD, John Dickinson here on KNBR, the sports leader. 808 KNBR. Appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch as well. And another rough one for the Golden State Warriors as they waste a near-career night from Stephen Curry. Curry going for 62 away from his career high of 62. He hit 10 of 23 from 3, did everything he could to keep the Warriors in the game and in front down the stretch. So often this season the Warriors have needed Stephen Curry to dominate down the stretch of games, and he did that tonight, but really wasn't enough in what was a back-and-forth affair that was tied going into the OT, but also tied at the end of quarter number 3, tied at the half as well. And as you look big picture in this game, Warriors unable to get the stop late, and this was a game that point blank they needed to win in regulation. And once it got to OT without Andrew Wiggins, who got hurt just before halftime, without Jonathan Kuminga, who fouled out on a couple of silly fouls. I know there's been some Warrior fans, complaining about the whistle there, and talk about you can't hand check a guy 3 times in a row out on the perimeter and put your arm on him the way that Kuminga did. So nothing there as far as the being bad officiating or anything like that. Now, if you want to talk about the 6th and final foul, I mean, that might be a little bit more of a questionable call, but it looked like he bumped Trae Young there. Young sold it and ended up getting that call there. But Kuminga, who came on in the fourth quarter, not his best overall game tonight, and I thought they really missed Kuminga's offensive prowess in the overtime. Reason we're talking about that, I thought the Warriors really missed Wiggins' defensive prowess in the second half and down the stretch and in overtime. Not much of an offensive first half for Wiggins, but he really was bringing it on the defensive end. And then what can you say? As great as as Stephen Curry was, in this game tonight, was as awful as Klay Thompson was. I mean, this was a bad Klay game for the ages, and there's been a lot of bad Klay games over the course of really last year and this year. Not too many of those really when he came back off of the second injury in 2022, but he was shooting it. And 2 of 13 from 3, 4 of 19 overall. Just an ugly Klay Thompson performance on a night where the Warriors were shorthanded enough, not only on the front line, but in the backcourt as well. And Steve Kerr sticking with Klay Thompson. Again, not sure exactly what the other options were for the Warriors in losing both Kuminga and Wiggins due to the foul out and due to the ankle injury. So Podziemski got more time with Wiggins being out, and then that dumped Quinones. I mean, you could make the case just on a one-off tonight that Quinones, for his offensive prowess, are you really going to go down that road? I mean, again, I'll just ask Warrior fans at 808 KNBR, because if you're really playing the best guy on that night, and again, I'm saying this, knowing the answer to the question already, but if there was going to be a case, hey, Quinones was playing, a better offensive game, do you go with Quinones over Klay Thompson down the stretch because he was so bad? And I know, Steve Kerr said, hey, the best players in a given night are for the most part going to play, and we know the answer to that. I mean, you're not gonna go away from the guy that's helped you win 4 NBA championships, for a two-way player. And a lot of the things that people said, last year about Anthony Lamb can't be playing a two-way guy over this guy or that guy. And I think, tonight, you're not going to be playing a two-way guy over a future Hall of Famer and a guy that was playing extremely poorly, but has the ability to get hot in any moment. But regardless, because this really isn't about the decision, it's about just how awful Klay Thompson was in this game. The size of the Hawks really hurt the Warriors. Warriors did get bit, I think, by the smaller lineup, or at least hurt by the smaller lineup that they've been playing with Draymond at center and Kuminga at the 4 and Wiggins at the 3 more than they had been over the course of the last week or so since they've been using that lineup with regularity. But, again, I know there's going to be clamoring from Dub Nation and from the Warrior fan base as to, well, you need to go get a big. But, again, the way if you're going and you're getting a big that's going to start and play a lot of minutes, then that's going to knock Draymond down to the 4, and that's going to knock Kuminga down to the 3, and the Warriors just don't like playing Kuminga at the 3. So, again, I some nights you're going to get beat by the size or bitten by the size, but the reality is the Warriors still had a chance to win this game and couldn't get enough critical stops down the stretch despite Stephen Curry just going nuts. So not really playing the blame game for this one tonight, but as we bring in Greg Silver here, producer of the program, it's just another night where the Warriors show that they just, I don't think they played a great game tonight, second of a back-to-back. I thought they looked really tired throughout the course of the game, with the exception of Stephen Curry. I thought basically everybody else looked really tired, including Kuminga, who looked like he was really laboring. And so, they just didn't quite have the energy or the quality of play that they've had here over this last, week and a half stretch where they've played much more competitive basketball. And you look up and the Warriors shoot 18 of 56 from three-point range in the game tonight. And just not enough. It was not enough size at times. It was not enough offense at times. It was not enough defense at other times. And, you just add it all up, Greg, and it's just another night where this Warriors team just proves themselves to not have enough in some ways when they do have enough in other ways. And it's the mark of a mediocre basketball team. It's the mark of a team that's going to have a hell of a time trying to turn this thing around as they now find themselves dipping back to 4 games under 500 at 21 and 25, and on the outside looking in of the Western Conference play-in and playoff picture. But just a game that they needed to win in regulation, couldn't do it, and we've seen this far too many times where the Warriors get into these overtime situations and they just don't have enough left in the tank.
It was a really tough one tonight, and I think it really proved that they needed at least an Andrew Wiggins or Jonathan Kuminga out there. And you're right that it wasn't Kuminga's best game. I'm not going to come here and harp on Kuminga because he has been playing pretty incredible ball as of late, but I do agree with you that he looked a little bit tired, and offensively he just wasn't quite there with some of those turnovers. Klay Thompson struggled mightily, and that was a huge impediment for the team tonight. And I think, when Steph Curry has 60 points and you can't find a way to get it done, and Draymond Green's able to play and he wasn't in foul trouble or ejected, and you can't get it done against an Atlanta Hawks team that is pretty underwhelming. Look, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but JD, earlier on Just Dubs, when we're playing the game of, the Warriors got to play like a top 5 team if they want to get out of the play-in tournament, and they got to win X amount of games over this stretch, and they need to finish 25-12 and start kind of playing the numbers game. Well, these are the exact type of games that when you have a chance to take it and you don't, at the end of the day, you are what your record says you are, I think is very true for this team as it applies with not being able to take what's right in front of them. And I know you mathematically you kind of play the game sometimes of every close game you should probably be taking about 50%, slice that in two. It sure feels like they're getting a lot less than 50%, and I think they really are what their record shows it is, despite having one of the still amazing top 5 players in the entire universe.
Yeah, it just they just don't have enough, and every night that they get a win or that they play competitive and nearly get a win, you look at the things that go well, and the things that go well have just been unable to go well consistently enough. They just there's always a couple of players that don't have it on the nights where other guys do have it. And there's always going to be, it's turnovers one night, it's bad shots another night, it's a lack of size, I think, a little bit tonight. And so there's just enough. And again, this is not going up against top-tier teams. I know the Hawks have been playing a little bit better since the last time that the Warriors faced them, going back to last week in San Francisco. And, they're getting a little bit healthier. The Warriors are even when they have at least this lineup that they had over the last week, they're starting to find some action. But now you start taking away from that lineup in addition to the guys that are already out, and it just doesn't add up. And so you look at where this team kind of goes from here, and there just isn't. There just isn't an answer. I don't think there isn't a trade to be made. I know there's a lot of people that are really frustrated with Klay Thompson's game tonight, and you should be. But tonight is not all right, trade Klay Thompson, kick him the hell out of town, and that's it. Like it doesn't work that way. Like it doesn't work that way, and so it just as frustrating as it is. Tonight it was one of the future Hall of Famers that winds up doing you in. 808 KNBR is the number. Let's get to the phone lines here and get it rolling with Connor in Dublin, who gets us tipped off tonight here on Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader.
Hey, JD, how are you?
I'm doing okay, Connor. Trying to make some sense of this, but just too many things going wrong, even when Stephen Curry has one of the best games of his career.
Yeah, I feel like, and this has definitely been like one of his definitely his best game of the season so far. I mean, he hasn't been playing his best of late, so I think it's really helpful that he's definitely doing way better. I think what the problem was is that the Warriors overall, I mean, it took them a while to even get a lead, and I was watching it. I was at a restaurant with my mom, and we were watching it on the TV, and I noticed that they couldn't seem to get a lead for a while. They were often behind either by 1 point or two. They even fell behind by 4 or 5 at one point. They finally got a 1 point lead. I think it was like 98 to 97 or so. I can't remember, but they seem to be getting that momentum, and they just, like you said before, they seem to have ran out of gas. The game's all tied up, and what I noticed is that they seem to be really missing a lot of shots, and open ones too, and a lot of fouls on them, fouls that they couldn't give. So that's what I can make sense of it as much as possible.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. Appreciate the call. Connor's line open, 808 KNBR. There's too many turnovers in this game, Greg. Too many fouls, I thought, at inopportune times when they got stops. Again, I'm not playing the officiating game. I know I saw some people kind of whining about the officiating and the whistle and a couple of the calls that Trae Young got, and I get that it's a bone of contention in the Bay because Steph doesn't maybe get the whistle consistently or in the same ways that players like Trae Young do, and that's fair. Like that's fair. But again, I don't look at a night like tonight and blame the officiating. And again, I don't want to come out like I'm picking on Kuminga. Like Kuminga, I'm not. But he happened to be involved in 2 plays tonight, his 5th and his 6th fouls that were fouls. I mean, both of them, point blank. And again, that's not to blame him. They were fouls. He committed fouls. He wasn't trying to commit fouls. Although I don't know what he was doing, putting his basically doing a left hand check against Trae Young 3 consecutive times with Young holding the ball out at the 3-point line. You can't do that. You can't. You can get away with it once, but you can't. I mean, you can't do it 3 consecutive times. And again, on the other one, I don't think he was trying to foul, but those were fouls. And they were called. And again, we can talk about whether Curry gets this whistle or that whistle. I think that's a different conversation. But the point I'm getting at, Greg, is I don't want to do the officiating thing tonight either. It's like execute. Get a stop when you have the lead down the stretch and your future Hall of Fame player is going for 60. Get a stop there and prevent the game from going into overtime where it's been just a house of horrors, really, for the Warriors. Really going back to even when they were dominant and had Kevin Durant. I mean, the Warriors, for whatever reason, really struggled in overtime, and they've struggled in overtime for the better part of like 6 or 7 years on the calendar, but especially tonight, shorthanded on the second of a back-to-back. They looked, I thought, physically gassed. I think that was part of the reason why maybe they didn't play their best game tonight overall. And Draymond didn't have the game that he's had. Kuminga didn't have the game that he's had. Wiggins did not have the games that he's had of late before he got hurt there with the ankle. We'll keep you updated on that as we learn more. And then Klay Thompson, second of a back-to-back, didn't have it. And the Warriors got, I thought, some nice contributions from some of the younger guys again. Lester Quinones pitching in 17, Podziemski pitching in 15, 11, and 5 off the bench, and wound up being part of the closing lineup for the Warriors with Wiggins out. And then once Kuminga fouled out, Quinones went right back in there, and the Warriors, though, were playing awfully small there at the end when you go Curry and Podziemski and Quinones and Klay Thompson basically at the 4 with Draymond Green at the 5 with some of the size and length that the Atlanta Hawks can put out there on the floor. And look, Capella and Okongwu just annihilated the Warriors in this one. 72 points in the paint for Atlanta in the big picture, and Okongwu ends up with 22 off the bench on 8 of 12. Capella, 8 of 11 for 17. So the two bigs go for 39, and they do it in unbelievably efficient fashion. They do it on, 16 of 23. 16 of 23 for 39 points. I mean, that's spectacular. And 72 in the paint. Again, the Warriors got bit tonight for the small ball lineup. And unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to live with on some of these nights if you're Golden State right now. So 808 KNBR, the number. If you want to chime in, give me a call or shoot me a text here, the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. It's Dubs OT with JD here on The Sports Leader. We're streaming live on YouTube and Twitch. Appreciate everybody who is watching as well. And, just another tough one. Ernie Chavez chiming in here. Clank in full effect. Yeah, that was as bad a game as Klay Thompson has had in some time for the Warriors. And it kind of goes back to the Warriors just have a really difficult time winning the games where Klay Thompson is awful. He's been able to limit those games where he's awful more than he had been earlier in the season and at times last season. But tonight it reared its head. And, Klay with just an awful night. Ernie also adding to the conversation that Kuminga fouled out and nobody could score. Yeah, they missed Kuminga's offense in a big-time way. As much as Curry was going off, once the game got to OT, you could get some easy buckets potentially from Jonathan Kuminga, and those were nowhere to be found in the OT. Again, I think when you look at Wiggins, they missed his defense in the second half as the Warriors were fighting to try and stay in the game and be able to make a run. And Rebel to Sounds, why does Kerr play Podziemski big minutes? Podziemski's earned big minutes. And look, Podziemski at times can struggle defensively, and I thought he struggled defensively tonight as well. But you look at Podziemski top to bottom, and Podziemski's a guy that's 15 points, 11 boards, and 5 assists. I mean, he puts up a stat line in this game, at least an offensive stat line in this game. So right now, we talked about this on Just Dubs this morning here on KNBR. Podziemski is one of the Warriors' 5 or 6 best players right now, and that's certainly tonight. You look at Klay Thompson and the tough game there, but if you're just saying, all right, the Warriors' best players, Steph and Draymond and Klay and Kuminga and Wiggins, of late, Podziemski's probably been their 5th or their 6th best player here over the last month and a half to 2 months, as now we get on into February. And so, he's going to be playing. And, when the Warriors lost Wiggins, it was going to open the door for the next man to step up. And unfortunately for the Warriors, that means a guard. If Wiggins or Kuminga go out right now, the Warriors don't have another 3-4 to turn to in the rotation at all. I mean, Wiggins, as I've said a lot, is the only three-man on the roster. He's the only true three. They played Kuminga some three they played Kuminga some three early in the third quarter after Podziemski got the start for Wiggins. So they went with the three guards. Clay went to the three. It was Podziemski and Curry in the backcourt with Kuminga and Draymond. And then they went to Trace Jackson-Davis. I think it took Clay out. It was Clay or Podziemski. I think it was Clay that ended up coming out, and Trace Jackson-Davis went into the game. And Kuminga played some three, and Kuminga is just a different player at the three. He's much more perimeter oriented in the Warriors' offense. That was when the Hawks were really daring him to shoot from the outside. He was getting the ball a lot more in areas on the court that we haven't seen him quite be as successful, and it was just some tough minutes. So. The answer to that is you want to play Kuminga at the spot where he's best, so that means he's going to play at the 4, and that means you have to add another guard into the lineup for the Warriors, and that means you're playing smaller. And unfortunately, that ends up biting the Warriors in this game tonight. Let's go to Shardal in Fremont. What's going on, Shardal?
As a Warriors fan, I know that the Atlanta Hawks are a really great basketball team with star players such as Clint Capella, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and Bogdan Bogdanovic. And they fell to the Hawks by a score of 141-134 on Steph Curry's spectacular shooting performance of 60 points. I mean, this was a great game, but it was heartbreaking. I mean, you always want a team to come out with a win, but every team, every game can result in a win, right? You have to learn from the loss. You have to learn from what happened and try and focus on the next game and make sure you get that win, because this is a learning moment for every team that you go up against, right? You're going to lose. You're going to learn from that experience, and you're going to go on and face whichever team you end up facing and maybe whenever you face them next.
Yeah, no, I think that's all you can basically take from it at this point in time. And thank you for the call. Appreciate Shardal and Fremont checking in here. It is Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. Let's go ahead and pause here. We'll come back. 808 KNBR is the number. I get it. Warrior fans are frustrated. We'll dig into the YouTube chat as well as the uphill climb continues. A couple steps forward, another step back. And you look at the missed opportunities for the Warriors just in these last 6 games. They're 3-3. And they've lost 2 by a point, and the other one tonight in overtime. The one game against the Lakers, a double overtime game that L.A. last Saturday was able to walk out of Chase Center with the victory in. And that, along with a bunch of other close losses for the Warriors as they played yet another clutch game on the season. Now Warriors 21-25, and the uphill climb continues. 141-134 is the final in overtime. Hawks outscore the Warriors 18-11 in the OT. Dubs OT with JD continues here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Curry off the handoff, step back three. Good! A 50 ball! Steph splits the double team. Curry on a runner. Good!
A closer. Now you got to get a stop.
Atlanta takes time.
Steph's done his job.
13.8. He's got 52. Curry another three. He's got 60.
He is unbelievable.
52 for Stephen Curry in regulation, 22 of the 52 in the fourth quarter, putting the Warriors in position to win, although the Warriors do not win as Steph ends up with 60 on the night, coming within 2 points of his career high 62, going back to early January of 2021 in the pandemic-shortened season coming out of COVID with no fans in the stands at Chase on that night in January when Steph did it against the Blazers. 22 of 38, 10 of 23 from three, 6 of 6 at the line, 60 points to go with 6 boards and 4 assists, and the Warriors unable to get a win on one of the best individual performances scoring-wise of Stephen Curry's career. We're back here. It's Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. Warriors fall to 1-4 this season in overtime games and have lost 11 in a row on the road in overtime. Warriors 1-1 on the 5-game road trip and 8-12 when you look at the Warriors' road record as a whole here on the season. The Warriors now, as you look at the standings, they find themselves, 8-12, 21-25, and a game back still of Utah in the Western Conference. 10th spot race for that final spot, basically, to get into what would be the play-in tournament. The Warriors still on the outside looking in, and now with the second of the back-to-back and Andrew Wiggins banged up, we did get an update on Andrew Wiggins, this via Anthony Slater of The Athletic, who is on hand tonight in Atlanta. And Anthony Slater providing the info from Steve Kerr in his post-game press conference. Kerr said it's a sprained foot, not an ankle for Andrew Wiggins, according to Rick Celebrini. That from Steve Kerr's post-game press conference. And Slater in the locker room there in Atlanta says Wiggins was icing his foot, did have a light limp, no walking boot or crutches. He told Slater he thought it wasn't too bad, but would have a better feel in the morning. And again, the Warriors need, I think, Andrew Wiggins if they're going to attempt to salvage and need more of the Andrew Wiggins that they were getting here over the course of the last couple of weeks than really the Andrew Wiggins that they got tonight. I thought the Warriors did look a little tired in this game tonight, top to bottom. Basically, everybody not named Stephen Curry, I thought looked like they played tired in this game, from Draymond to Kuminga to Wiggins in the first half, definitely Klay Thompson. Again, among the starters, and then you look at some of the younger guys. Pajemski didn't look that way. Quinones getting an opportunity. Trace Jackson Davis had 5 points in 9 minutes with 5 boards. But I thought the veteran guys plus Kuminga really played like they looked tired, aside from Stephen Curry in this one. 808 KNBR is the number. We will have Sounds of Silver coming up here. We'll keep things going probably right up until about 8:30 tonight here on the Sports Leader, as the Dubs can't get the win, fall in overtime to the Hawks in this one tonight. Ernie Chavez, Trey gets too many BS calls. Yeah, that's fair. Regulator, I don't remember them showing how Wiggins got hurt. They may not have had a camera angle on that. Greg, did you happen to see anything about the play in which it was right before halftime? I know Fitz on the television call was all over it. on NBC Sports Bay Area. He saw it, and Wiggins had just tweaked something, took an awkward step and the like. Greg, did you happen to see anything like that, or was there a replay on anything as far as when he got injured?
No, I didn't get a great look at it in the first place, and then didn't actually know until the second half. I mean, granted, I was doing a little bit of multitasking and moving around here tonight, but it did come as news to me.
Yeah, no, they didn't show it, but again, Fitz had said that he saw, and Wiggins was visibly limping for the last possession or two of the first half, and then did not come out in the second half to start. And no, I don't think they showed it. Rebel to sound, Steph could have taken a better shot at the end of the fourth quarter. I don't know. I thought he got a pretty damn good look, and it looked like that shot was going in. Getting in between, not getting all the way to the bucket, being forced off the 3-point line, and Curry making the drive, and I thought he had it. Honestly, off the release, I thought that was actually a pretty good look from Steph and Curry. Yeah, tough stuff. They needed that shot to go in, or they needed to get a stop. Rebel to sounds, Trae Young gets more calls than Steph. Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, he does. And, you could make a case as to whether that's fair or not in the grand scheme of an entire NBA season. Julian, trade Clay. It's infuriating to waste a 60 ball from Curry. Yeah, there's no doubt about the latter. It is infuriating, and the Warriors have wasted so many really good performances. We've talked last week about how basically among Wiggins' 5 or 6 best games this season, the Warriors have wasted all but 2 of them. This year, basically, Curry to do what he did and not get a win. I mean, it hurts. It hurts because Curry's done so much to be able to try and carry the Warriors the best he can. He hasn't always been able to do it during this season, but the Warriors, he's to have him play that well and not be able to cash it in and not be able to continue the forward momentum. It just continues to show you how fine a line it is for the Warriors, that you can have Steph do what he did tonight but still not have enough other quality performances from others up and down the roster. Tonight's the night where you didn't need 28 from Kuminga, but if you could have got a little more efficient 22 in the regulation, maybe you would have had some action there. If you get anything at all from Clay, if you get anything really at all from Wiggins offensively. Clay and Wiggins did not play well offensively tonight. Wiggins missed some drives, missed some easy ones. And so tonight is just one of those nights where you look back and you go, man, another couple of buckets here or there, and the Warriors are able to continue the momentum and cash in a big-time night for Steph and Curry. Queen of noise. Everyone hates on Looney lately, but he and Gee were the only ones in the plus, and I don't understand why Kerr didn't put them in at the end for rebounding. Yeah, that would have been another option. I mean, you could have put, but Looney's just been so poor lately that if you're going to put Looney out there with Draymond, then you're probably going to still have the 3-guard lineup at that point with Podziemski and probably Klay Thompson and Steph. And so you could have gone with more size there, maybe with Wiggins out and Kuminga out once he fouled out of the ball game. But it was a night where the bigs, and in particular the centers, Draymond holds his own against some of the best in the league, but tonight was a night on the second of a back-to-back where a couple of younger guys that make their living on the offensive boards and on the short rolls and the dunker spot stuff and the stuff right around the basket where they just kind of park it in there and get physical, and they were really hurt by it in this game tonight. So it again is another example of how things need to be adjusted on a night in, night out basis. But that being said, the Warriors still had an opportunity to win the game. Drew down with a great point, and this was something I had bookmarked in my notes. The Hawks feasted 4-on-3 with the double on Trae. Yeah, the Warriors, and we've seen the Warriors do that to teams offensively when you're able to get the ball out of Stephen Curry's hands and be able to, it's one thing to get it out of his hands, but then there's an advantage to where if teams are disciplined, they can be able to score with the man advantage. And so, yeah, it was, tough stuff. And your rotations have to be on point. And, the Warriors were not there tonight. Regulator Hawks did their scouting on Kuminga, kept stripping him when he drove to the basket. Good call there by Regulator. Yeah, they were really swiping out on the perimeter, and they were trying to really lay off of Kuminga and dare him to shoot threes. And look, Kuminga, as we've talked about a lot, he's got a lot of confidence in his three-point shot. More confidence than I think the Warriors want him to have at this particular point in time. So he's kind of willing to take it, and then there's times where he thinks about it. And, yeah, because Kuminga doesn't have the best handle, if you can try to swipe at him before he can get the head of steam. Once he gets the head of steam, it's over. You're basically going to foul him, or he's going to dunk it on you, or he's going to get an easy layup. But if you can, get him a little loose with the handle before then, you have an opportunity to get a stop there. Quinn Snyder teams are going to be really good at sort of scouting for tendencies in players that have been, problematic for opponents that have faced the Warriors of late, and so the Warriors were able or the Hawks were able to do that. So 808 KNBR, the number. Let's go back to the phones here. It's Dubs OT with JD here on The Sports Leader, and we'll get to Eric in San Francisco who chimes in tonight here on KNBR. Hey, Eric.
Hey, JD. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Klay, because I feel like this season, regardless, there's no one on the trade market that's magically going to get us very far in the playoffs. So I feel like we should ride the season out and kind of ask ourselves this kind of existential question at the end of the year, whether we want to be Jeannie Buss and the Kobe Bryant Lakers or Danny Ainge and the Paul Pierce Celtics. Because if we want to ride out and re-sign Klay at the end of the year, we're pretty much guaranteeing 5 to 7 years of mediocre basketball at best because of the cap situation and then the necessary asset buildup. Or we could kind of strip it down like the Celtics did and maybe build it up through some draft picks or cap space or some player development or something like that. But I mean, Klay, I honestly think it's not just that he had a bad shooting night. There were a handful of times where he just got beat. One point, Kuminga and Klay went out to double Trey, and Trey just beat Klay around the dribble and had an easy floater for a two-pointer. And it's just it's just his foot speed isn't there anymore. And I feel as much as it pains me because I love Klay, the fact that he still thinks that he's a $20 or $30 million player is just not realistic, or at least in my opinion. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, it's not at all, Eric. And I've said as much, regularly here on KNBR and in my previous life on the radio here in the Bay Area. That's why there isn't a deal done to this point between the Warriors and Klay Thompson. It's because Klay Thompson still believes he's a $40 million player, and the Warriors probably would have been comfortable paying him between 20 and 25 for a shorter term. My guess is the Warriors probably would be comfortable 3 and about 75 for Klay Thompson moving forward. I think Klay probably wants 4 and 160. And so it becomes a situation where it's basically double that what Klay wants, I would anticipate, versus what the Warriors would be willing to pay. And so at that point, you're at a big-time stalemate. And if Klay can't read the room and look in the mirror and understand the level of player that he is currently moving forward, and also understand the fact that he has been rewarded for what he's brought, that's the one thing, and I get it. I think the injuries took a mental toll as much as they did a physical toll, and Klay is an extremely prideful player. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's one of the greats of all time, but the inability to look in the mirror and acknowledge that he isn't the same guy that he used to be, and also had been paid 2 years of that highest level of money to not play before the 2 years that before the third year where he led up to played the half year and the Warriors won the championship, and now the 2 more years at the end of this contract last year and this year, and so there is just a lack of just awareness to yourself and situational awareness to where things stand as far as the cap and the money that you've been paid these last 5 years, basically to rehab, but also the Warriors paid him the max deal that they paid him because of everything that he brought from 2013, he was drafted in 2011, but from 2011, but really from 14 to 19 with the 6 straight finals appearances and the 3 championships and I guess 5 straight finals appearances and the 3 championships and then the 6th finals appearance a couple years later. But at the point in which he was a free agent when he got hurt, he was compensated for that. And so I'm in line with riding the season out. I know Steve Kerr did say this week you're not going to find better players than Wiggins and Chris Paul and GP2 on the trade market. Like, you're not going to be able to flip some of those guys for players that are better than the guys that you're basically getting back. And so I understand it. The defense has not been there. Clay, on a lot of nights, he can't guard the guards anymore. He can't guard the quick guys anymore. And there are some wings that really give him fits as well. So do you re-sign him? Look, the countdown is on with 2.5 months to go. I mean, right now, today, right this second at 8:03 on Saturday, February 3rd, like, I don't see how the Warriors would be able to re-sign Clay, or that Klay Thompson would be back. I just think that there's two. Now, if Clay goes out in free agency and the market dictates to Clay that, hey, you're more of a $20, $25 million player, and that is a wake-up call or a reality check for Klay Thompson, maybe the Warriors are able to do something then. Maybe the Warriors do want to keep him, but need him to be able to prove, or need him to be able to look in the mirror and understand that he's, not. Maybe the league has to tell him that in blunt terms before he would accept something less. But all signs right now are pointing toward Klay Thompson not being back next year. And look, 2 months can change a lot of things. He could be spectacular for the last month of the season, and maybe that changes things. But to me, there's been just too many ups and downs overall for the Warriors and Klay Thompson, where I don't think at this point, it is, who knows? And, as far as the rebuild, as you listen to KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader, a Cumulus radio station. It's Dubs OT with John Dickinson here on KNBR, the sports leader. As we bring Greg Silver back into the conversation, as far as, what do the Warriors do moving forward, it's not a rebuild with draft picks. We've seen that these last 3 or 4 years. It's not. It could be clearing cap space, but the time that it takes you to clear the cap space, are you going to still have Stephen Curry? So and Stephen Curry playing at the level that he's still at and showed that he's still at tonight. That's the tough part. Player development, we've seen that takes longer than expected unless you really get a special player that's able to contribute relatively immediately. So I think what it boils down to now, Greg, and we've talked about it, is do you look to build it around Steph and Draymond and Kuminga, and then maybe keep Wiggins, walk away from Clay, and look at some of the other young guys that are in the mix? Or do you look to make some kind of drastic moves in the offseason to get a little bit more veteran again and try to do it that way around Steph?
That's a tough question, JD, and I'm going to really try to refrain from not just living in the moment and really focusing on what we just saw, because sports is a very reactionary business. I know that's kind of our job. I know fans will definitely react, and I'll get to our question of the night in just a second, because I think that further proves that there's a little bit of reaction going on. But I think you got to see how the season goes. Like, Draymond has only been back for a pretty short amount of time, and if it's clear that the answer is build around Kuminga and Steph and Draymond and possibly keep Wiggins, I think that's going to be a lot more apparent come late March and April, whether this team makes the playoffs or not. But I think right now it's just been such a small sample size of Draymond returning, and say Draymond gets himself in trouble again or gets another suspension, well, all of a sudden that completely flips the entire answer if you're on the side of let's just see what they got here. So my instinct right now is to say build with those guys you have, because you can't just buy team chemistry. I mean, obviously when Kevin Durant came in, he was a natural fit for the Warriors, but B, that's Kevin Durant joining an already great team. Of course, it's going to fit pretty seamlessly. But, look at other rosters that have come together. The James Harden and Russell Westbrook experiment in Houston didn't really pan out. The big three in Brooklyn did not really pan out. I could go on a longer list of modern NBA, and then look at a team like the New York Knicks, where Jalen Brunson wasn't the sexiest free agent signing a couple off seasons ago, but they make one trade to get a nice guy in OG Anunoby, and all of a sudden they're the number one defensive team in the league, and Brunson's a top 5 MVP candidate, and they're playing great team basketball. So for those reasons, JD, I'm inclined to say build around the guys you got, your young rising star and your two veterans who still prove to have a lot of value. I know after the tough Klay Thompson performance, many people are going to say, get rid of him in the offseason. I did say this a little bit earlier in the day off the air, which was if Klay can't accept taking a lesser role and possibly coming off the bench, I think they don't really have much of a choice. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I don't know about, coming off the bench is a conversation, I think, probably for the offseason if he does come back. You also have to have a better option. And, to me, if you're going to say Klay Thompson's going to be coming off the bench, then you need to go get a starting two guard that can play next to Stephen Curry. And if you're going and you're getting a starting two guard, then that's not named Klay Thompson, then you don't need Klay Thompson to be on the Warriors anymore. So I kind of think it works hand in hand there. I do think to get into the question of the night, and you posted this, and I should have handed it out, but this has been up for about 10 minutes on the KNBR Twitter at KNBR. Dubs OT question of the night: what's the Warriors' most pressing need? 4 choices: a secondary shooter, another center, a perimeter defender, injured players return. And it's in that order. And I would vote secondary shooter. Like, they need more shooting on this team. Another center is the number 2 option right now. Secondary shooter, 38.5%. That I do think is a reaction to Klay Thompson's bad game tonight. But Klay Thompson's too up and down. I'm sorry, he's too up and down. And he isn't the defender that he used to be. And here's the other thing: he's not a 3 or a 4. He's not. The Warriors are trying to play him at small forward, and the reason they're trying to play him at small forward is because he can't guard 1s and 2s anymore for the most part. But there are enough 3s and 4s that he can't guard to where it's not like you're saving him defensively, from that standpoint. And so another center. Again, I'm reluctant on another center, and the reasons I'm reluctant on another, I got to know that Jonathan Kuminga can play the 3 before you can add another center that's going to kick Draymond Green down to the 4. I know I'm being redundant with that, but to me, if you're saying another center, it's a starting center. That either means Kuminga's going to the bench if you bring in somebody that's good enough to be a legitimate starting level big that would supplant Draymond to be the 4-man, or it would need to be somebody that's more of a complementary bench-type center to where you're still going to start Draymond. And that's where this team is caught, Greg. That's where this team is caught right now, because their best version of themselves as they're currently constituted is Draymond at 5, Kuminga at 4, Wiggins at 3, Steph and Clay or Steph and Pajemski, or some combination of that. Most nights right now is when the Warriors are at their best. And if you look to add a big, you're negating a lot of what, not tonight, but you're negating a lot of what has made this team successful, which is Draymond's ability to be a much more effective player when he's the guy that's playing the 5.
Yeah, I hear you. And
Kuminga is more effective as a 4.
Oh, I mean, I think that's pretty apparent. And you pointed that out nicely to me in the game, that Kuminga's worst stretch of the game seemed to come when Trace Jackson-Davis came in as the center and Kuminga was all of a sudden playing that 3 position. I'm looking at the question of the night because I put it up on Threads as well. Similar but not identical spread. We have secondary shooter leading the voting at 41%. And then we have tied at 24%, another center and injured players return, which means perimeter defender rounds out the other 10%. I expected secondary shooter to be the most popular answer, especially coming off the heels of Steph Curry has 60 points and the Warriors couldn't finish it. That said, I also think that would be my option in general if you just played any kind of game, because how many times have we seen it, JD, where the Warriors, if Clay is not playing well, getting away with a tight game? I mean, the Chicago Bulls game on the road was a nice little road win, but that was both of them, both the Splash Brothers, making good shots around the stretch in the fourth quarter. And I think the tough thing with Clay is it's not that, he had the injuries and he's not the same defensive player. Like, we all know that. We've all run that round many, many, many times. I think what's difficult with Clay is he has the tendency to be so willing to force shots as a way of getting back into the game, and that's exactly what was going on tonight. I think there have been other nights where he's not shooting the ball particularly well, but he's still making plays in the sense of using the pick and roll, and guys still come out on him, and we've seen him and Trace Jackson-Davis have some incredible pick and roll movement together. And tonight it felt like he just so badly wanted to get that shot and get back in the game that he was putting up all sorts of shots, and he even airballed a couple. And it was a frustrating sight to see as an observer, in addition to probably what he was feeling on the inside.
Yeah, no, and you can tell it kind of snowballs on him from time to time when he misses, and then he wants to chase the misses with more shot attempts, and those are when his worst games come, when he does that. From the land of the Hella in the YouTube chat, there's no reason to re-sign Clay outside of nostalgia. Again, I'm not going to go that far. I do think Clay can be a productive player, but it's got to be at half as much of the cost than Klay Thompson probably believes that he is at right now as a player. Joe H. Clay's had multiple games like tonight. Yeah, there's been too many. Drew down, I don't see a Clay trade, but it's looking more and more like he walks. Yeah, I don't think there's a trade to be made at this point. Again, you got to be taking back a player that's going to make a ton of salary. And so, within 10% of what Klay Thompson is making. And so you look at that, and you're talking about taking a 30 $5+ million player back in return if you're gonna trade Clay, and so Enrique Clay does not own a mirror. JD reports were Dubs offered 2 for $48. Yeah, again, that's I think about 20-25 per year. I think if the reported offer, and I do recall that from a couple of months ago. If 2 and 48 seemed at the time to me, like if I'm Klay Thompson, like I get it both ways. Like if I'm Klay Thompson and I get offered 2 and 48, that's insulting to me. Like it would be. Like I totally understand where Klay's coming from in terms of his ego and the career that he's had and all of that, but it's not that far off. And it sure as hell isn't 4 and 160. And I think that's probably what he believes that he is at this particular point in time. Land of the Hella, Clay played better in 21-22. Yeah, he did. He did. Coming off the injury, I think his best stretch with the Warriors since the 2 injuries was the back half of that 2021-22 season, coming off of all of the rehab and all of that. Alpha Nickelberry, JD, I think Clay may be a 4th option on a championship team at this point. A 4th option on a championship team. Yeah, I don't think we know he's not a 2. Like, I don't even think Kuminga's a 2. A second option on a championship. He's probably a 3. He's probably a 3, Clay, maybe a 4 at this point. Just Kuminga's getting it done. Like, I still think there's an in-between ground between Kuminga and everything that he provides and Steph. Like, I don't think saying Kuminga is your second best player offensively is enough, as talented as he is and as well as he's played. Like, he has clearly been that for the Warriors over the last month. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But again, no shade on Kuminga. He's doing the best that he can, and he's only one player. But you need more than that. Like that, if Steph and Kuminga are your best 2 offensive players, we've seen what that is. That's 500 or even slightly below 500 here over the course of the last month. So, you need another player, I feel like, to wedge in between Steph, who's probably a little bit more veteran, and Kuminga. And then the question becomes, well, how do you get that player if you're going to try to acquire that player? So, yeah, 808 KNBR is the number. 808 KNBR. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Douglas Mikes, appreciate you checking in. As always, JD is correct. The Warriors already gave him a legacy contract. Clay thinking he still deserves more after the front office offered him $25 million for multiple years has kind of got me annoyed. Yeah, I would probably do a 3-year deal. I would not do a 4-year deal. I understand why, again, the initial offer is, you one side's going to offer a low point, the other side's going to offer a high point. If Clay thinks but this isn't as simple as Clay thinks he's 4 and 160 and the Warriors think he's 2 and 50. Right? If that's not as it's not as simple as meet in the middle, because meeting in the middle between 160 and 50 is over $100 million for 3. That's like 3 and 35 or 33 or something like that, and that to me is way too much. Jay Tan, should Clay be starting anymore? I mean, you tell me. Would you start Podziemski over Clay right now? I mean, you tell me how that rolls. With Clay Thompson. I think at that point, I think to quote Steve Kerr in the context of something he said earlier in the year, you may have anarchy if you in your locker room if you do that. So I don't know, Greg. Would you start Podziemski over Clay right now? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. I'll take you off the hook. I'll take the pressure off of you. I'll just say no. I wouldn't do that because here's the reality: you need them both anyway, and you need them both anyway. So it's kind of like the whole when they benched Wiggins. Right? You still needed Wiggins to play 20 minutes a game. So if you bench Clay, you still need him to come off the bench because you don't have enough good players to offset the fact that you still need Klay Thompson to be a part of the team.
Yeah, you're right. They do need them both. I mean, I'm not against Clay not closing. You can put a nice tight leash on Clay minutes.
The closing thing is night to night for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what good you do to just not start him, send him to the bench. We know Clay's been frustrated. I mean, you could if it continues like this, but I just see that creating more mess than it's worth at this point. If Clay's having a bad night, he just shouldn't be playing more than 25 minutes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, and I think tonight you could make the case that the Warriors didn't have enough other options to put out there, especially after Kuminga and Wiggins ended up fouling out. Joe H., more downs than ups, JD. No cap, 757, 4 years and $40 million, and Clay can stay then. I'd give him 1 year, have him come off the bench. That from our buddy Drew Down. A lot of people... Drew Down saying, hell no 4 years. Yeah, no, I would not give him 4 years. I think he wants 4 years. I think he looks at Draymond just getting 4 years and thinks I should get 4 years. But again, there's an inability to look in the mirror, I think, at this point. And so I think what it boils down to is Klay Thompson has to look in the mirror, or has to be told, by the rest of the league in free agency when he doesn't get the offers that he thinks he can command, that he isn't that type of a player anymore. Let's go ahead and pause here. 808 KNBR, we still have time to sneak in a couple of calls. We'll do Sounds of Silver, a quick version of that, quick version of fun with numbers as well, and clean up some of the YouTube chat. And we will also let everybody know what's going to be coming up for Dubs OT later on this coming week with the 49ers playing in the big game down in Las Vegas. So 808 KNBR, it's Dubs OT with JD. We've got Greg Silver here as well. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
number 8.
Just put it together.
Hall of Famer Steve Young, Wednesdays at 5 on KNBR and KNBR FM, San Francisco.
Did you hear something?
Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah.
Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
After a made basket, Bajewski takes it the distance, puts it in and draws the foul.
Sleeping. Ran it up their backs.
This is becoming a thing in the NBA now. Trace Jackson-Davis hammers it down and draws the foul. Atlanta Bigs have had the edge tonight. Trace saying the guys in blue have a response.
He just put a Congo in the basket. Trace Jackson-Davis got some airtime.
Yeah, dunk of the night there from Trace Jackson-Davis. Warriors lose in Atlanta in overtime. Hawks win it 141-134. So the Warriors now 21-25. It's Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. Final segment. Appreciate everybody here on YouTube and Twitch on a Saturday night. Good, hearty conversation as always here on the sports leader. And we'll get to Sounds of Silver coming up here in just a moment as the Warriors fall. We're going to hear a couple from Steve Kerr, Greg, and a couple, I guess we're going to hear the entire Draymond Green post-game press conference, and also maybe a clip from Stephen Curry, who addressed the trade deadline, which is now about 4.5 days away. So, what do you got tonight, Greg?
Well, we actually have our guy Drew down on the phone lines. You want to get to him first?
Yeah, let's sneak Drew Down in. Yeah, what's going on, Drew Down? You're on KNBR, the sports leader. What's up, buddy?
What up, JD? Tough to call. Barely had the strength to muster up the call after that gut punch tonight. Curry obviously was amazing. The last shot people might have had a problem with. I might have liked to see maybe a step back jumper, but I can't fault. It was a runner. He had a shot, so I'm not gonna criticize Curry for that last shot. I definitely think we needed to win that game in regulation, especially with J.K. fouling out. I definitely didn't think we had enough gas in overtime. I thought that charge on Trey, I thought he was moving. I thought it was clear that he was moving. They didn't overturn it, and I thought at that point was a bad omen, and they definitely ran away with the game. Clay obviously was really bad. He's been up and down. I kind of feel like Clay is like that ex that you keep getting back with. It's like, it's good, it's bad. It's when we get back together, remember the good times, but I don't know, man. I'm definitely not interested in a long-term, maybe a one-year deal if he's good with taking a backup role. But from everything he said and his actions, I don't think that he thinks that he's a backup player. I still think he thinks that he's a starting guard and close to a elite player in the league. So I don't know. I don't see a trade, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And just the injuries, with Wiggs going out at halftime, no Moody, no GP2, no Saric, Kuminga fouling out. I just thought, the shorthandedness, even with Curry's amazing heroics, it was just, in overtime, just too much to overcome. I thought Lester, Quinones played amazing. I thought his minutes were great. His defense on Trey, I felt like Trey was getting frustrated by him at times. So, shout out Lester for his performance. And then, like we talked about earlier, just the 4-on-3. I mean, I get it, getting the ball out of Trey's hands, but the Hawks pretty much just feasted on that 4-on-3 on the defense. So, I mean, maybe no easy answer. Obviously, I'm not coaching, but just a tough loss, especially with the way Curry played, and a chance to win 3 straight and really start to climb back into the play-in picture. So. Just a tough loss. Hopefully Wiggins, hopefully his injury isn't too serious and we can get some bodies back. But, yeah, just a tough loss. And the shorthanded roster, it's going to be an uphill battle going forward. So hopefully get well soon and, we'll see what happens going forward. Thanks, JD.
Yeah, thanks, Drew Down. Appreciate it. You did mention the one call, and I should have mentioned this earlier. I did think that was probably Trae Young moving. On that one I'll give, but that's a 50-50 call. As we bring Greg Silver back in here with what was Quinones on the drive, right? They call the offensive foul. The Warriors challenge it. Trae Young was moving, but the call on the floor was offensive foul, so you don't get that overturned in that particular situation. Not surprising, but I do think you could make a case. That was among the ones involving Trae Young tonight. I think that was the one that was the most likely to go in the Warriors' favor, or where you could say it should have maybe been the most likely to go in the Warriors' favor among all of them?
I think so, at least from what I watched. Again, did a little bit of multitasking throughout the night,
Sure.
But I would agree with you, JD, and I actually thought they were going to overturn it because I thought Trae Young was pretty clearly moving and not set. I guess they, referees do love to stick with the original call and get so caught up in the 100% conclusive evidence. It's like the late, great Pac-12 football go-to. I digress. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That was, we're not going to do the whole official thing, but for as angry as
you
fans,
can do it if you want.
No.
You
I was
can
just
do it
going to
if you want.
say, the only thing I was going to say is, like, as angry as fans get about Steve Kerr not challenging X, Y, and Z, I can kind of understand why he's reluctant to challenge things. If you just kind of look at some of the ones he does, say, okay, fine, I'll challenge that, and they don't quite go his way. Like, I'm just saying, I get it. I agree that he could probably, put himself out there a little bit more. But if you think that there's such a unlikely chance you're going to win, what are you going to do wasting it in the second quarter anyway? But let's get to sound. Why don't we?
Yeah, let's get to it. What do we got tonight? A couple of Kerrs, right? Some Draymond, and then one from Steph Curry on the trade deadline via the post-game press conferences down in the ATL. Not to steal your setup of all the sound, Greg, but
yeah, man. No, I'm good.
I got a suspicion that that's what we've got tonight.
Actually, we're only going to do one Kerr. I think there was really only one that I think was worth the soundbite. Then we'll get to Draymond's full minute 45, and then we'll get to the Anthony Slater, Stephen Curry cut. So this first one is Steve Kerr calling Kuminga's foul out a little head scratching. I know you said you agreed with the 5th and 6th foul calls, but here's what Steve Kerr had to say.
How big was the Kuminga foul out, considering you mentioned the depth being an issue?
Yeah, the JK foul out was it was important, and it was kind of head scratching. But I just didn't see a foul, but that was the call.
All right. Well, that's fair. Again, so he's talking about the 6th one. I know he was upset watching the TV feed. He was upset by the 5th one. He was upset by
the shoulder tapping.
The shoulder tap. And, you could see him yelling at the official, that's basketball. That's, like they're just playing basketball. And what I didn't see, and initially I had agreed with him, but then they showed the replay on NBC Sports Bay Area, and Kuminga did it 3 times in a row. Even Kalena on the it was like, well, you can't do that. Like, you can't do it 3 times in a row like that. So that one I think was definitely the other one was a little more iffy. Where Kuminga kind of fell into Trae, and Trae did sell it, but I do think Kuminga fell into him enough to where you do see a call, in those situations. So if he's talking about the 6th one, I got you. If he's talking about the 5th one, I know they came very close together. Sorry, Steve, I'm not with you on that one.
JD and Steve going head to head. Let's get to Draymond Green.
We usually agree, but
we'll get to Draymond. His full minute 49. Didn't have time to scrub through all of it during the break. So if he drops an F-bomb or two, then I plead innocent. Here we go.
Well, we'll dump it, and the folks on YouTube and Twitch are going to get a free show.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's your lucky night.
And if you're listening on the audio stream, you'll get a free. Only the radio will be edited. I shouldn't say that, should I?
It's out there now. It's out there now.
But only the radio is. The FCC is only concerned about the actual radio transmission, so we'll be all right.
Without further ado, here is the Draymond Green press conference.
Dre, of course, the second game of a back-to-back tough overtime loss tonight out there. You've been a defensive specialist in this year for a long time, well-respected on the defensive end. Going up against a guy like Trae Young, can you talk to me about the matchup issues he brings, being a great facilitator and scorer?
Yeah, I mean, they run a lot of sets where he has the ball most of the game and, just kind of put him in positions to make decisions. And that's why he is who he is in this league. He's been doing that really well for a long time now.
Draymond, you've seen your fellow teammate and Steph dropped 60 tonight. We've seen 60 so from Cat, and Luka hit last week 73. Do you think this is a trend that's going to happen to where about once a week we're going to see guys scoring 60-some points?
I mean, the game is played at a very fast pace nowadays. So get up and down a lot, get a lot of shots up, and, you know, you got a lot of great scorers in this league. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a trend, you know, but the skill is in this league is at an all-time high, that's for sure.
Also, I know you played with Trey. I mean, played with Steph for a long time. Your thoughts on this stage in his career, playing the game that he had tonight, dropping, I guess it was almost 50 in the second half?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's crazy because you kind of grow accustomed to him having those types of games and types of nights and halves. You know, he can get it going at any time. But it's just a testament to his hard work. You know, the work that he puts in on his body on a daily basis, you know, and it shows in these moments, you know, and just seems like he continues to get better, which is special at this age.
All right, so Draymond Green, there are a lot of different topics. You got the old, I call it this guy comes to our town once a year press conference. So we're going to get the you know, every question on the state of the game possible in there from Draymond Green. But always good to hear from Draymond in the aftermath of a Warriors loss, as you know, kind of hitting on a myriad of different topics. Do we have the Steph Curry? Before we get to fun with numbers and then wrap things up here on a Saturday night?
We sure do.
All right, so let's set this up, and I can set this up. It was basically Steph on the trade deadline. We'll keep it short and sweet. Here's 30.
You had the quote a couple weeks ago, kind of the insanity quote that was taken as kind of, you know, you may be indicating you think a trade may need to happen. I mean, it's deadline's, you know, nearing at this point. Do you think something's?
I mean, the rest of that quote was, it's up to us as players to perform, play at the level that we're supposed to, so that those conversations and decisions may be a little easier. And obviously, I'm not a GM. I'm not in that position where I'm getting asked that every single day. My job is to go out there and perform. The closer you get to it, it's the nature of the NBA. You can't be naive and act like, you know, calls are being made wherever it is. But for us as players in the locker room, you have to be able to control what you can control. And until it's, you know, said otherwise or decisions are made, like, it's up to us to go out and perform and hold our ground as a team that's, you know, a legitimate team that can win. And if you're not, then you approach things differently when the opportunity presents itself.
All right, so Stephen Curry there. A little bit of frustration there. I think there was a little annoyance there that I don't think you hear often from Stephen Curry. With regard to, you know, basically making sure that the full quote was out there. It wasn't necessarily that he was saying something had to be done, that it was on them to go out and prevent, you know, show that basically that this team can do it and you know, force the hand of the front office to maybe not make a move or make a move to add as opposed to making a move to subtract. But, I mean, how – at this point, and I know we've talked about it, and look, we've had some pretty measured conversations about it, Greg. At this point, I don't think there is a drastic move to be made involving, obviously, Steph or Clay or Draymond. Wiggins now is banged up with this foot thing. Does that, you know, hurt the ability for the Warriors if they were looking to try to get off his contract? Maybe a little bit. I do think it's also a matter of, look, you're not going to trade Andrew Wiggins at this point unless you're going to get a player back that is a disappointment on his current contract to his current team. It's not like you're going to trade Wiggins for a guy that's got 1 year left on his deal at the same amount of money or something like that without adding more as a sweetener. So I just don't know that there's a trade to be made for Wiggins at this point. And I think Kuminga, as we've talked about a lot, has made himself untradeable. So then what do you do? Who are we really talking about, right? At that point, we're talking about Chris Paul. I think we're talking about Moses Moody. I think we might be talking about Kevon Looney. I think we could be talking about Dario Saric and maybe even Gary Payton II. And look, some of those guys have more of a value to the Warriors. I mentioned the quote from Steve Kerr from earlier in the week where he said, hey, we're not getting players that are better than those guys on the trade market. And so, in essence, I'm adding my opinion here. It'd be foolish to try to look to move them at that point. So, we've gotten into it a lot, Greg, but, the answer is not stand pat. The answer is not stand pat, but drastic move. I'm still inclined to say play it out with Clay. You're keeping Draymond. I would keep Kuminga. I would keep Wiggins. I would obviously keep Steph. And probably Podziemski as well. I think you could throw Podziemski in there as a young player who has an opportunity to grow. Beyond that, I do think you have to look at everybody else.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, if the lens you're going to be looking at this team through for the next 4 or 5 years is Stephen Curry will not be playing basketball forever, especially at the level he's playing it right now, then I think stand pat is not an option. And whether that means you wait till the offseason, sure, but by then, by the summer, stand pat, not an option. And that means hard conversations have to be made. I hate to sound like a broken record with some of the points we've brought up in past Just Dubs or other Dubs OTs, but the Warriors kind of created this reality for themselves. Like, they all kind of signed off on this, or all the important pieces, at least, going into this 2024 season. And, they have not had enough success and not taken advantage of close games enough to the point where they can avoid having hard conversations. And I think the key hard conversation that's coming up is, what do you do about Klay Thompson in this offseason? Can you find some kind of common ground to make it work? Seems like the answer is no right now. Can things change in June? I don't know. That's to be determined, but it feels like we've been kind of saying the same 5 points over and over. And as Bob Myers would say on our soundboard, it's just exhausting, and it's gotten really repetitive too.
It has, and honestly, the truth is that's going to be the name of the game unless this team plays better. Like, there are not, or unless they quit on the season. I mean, because there's only a couple of more things that can be done, and we'll get our first feel for it here coming up at the deadline on Thursday as to what they do. Do they add? Do they take away from some of the veterans? Do they make a drastic move that neither of us see coming? And that'll be the first tell, because at that point it's the team. And then the next tell will be, does their record get to a point where they basically say they're going to start focusing on next year and playing more of the younger guys and maybe even playing some of the future Hall of Famers less in an attempt to keep them fresh and ready to roll for whatever next season ultimately is. I think they're still a ways away from that, but this is a mediocre basketball team right now. And, the questions for mediocre basketball teams, especially ones who had championship aspirations at the beginning of the year, those become redundant. So buckle up, Greg. Buckle up over the next 2+ months, because if this thing doesn't turn around, unfortunately, we probably are going to be having a lot of redundant conversations. But that's why we're here, and there's no place we'd rather be. Let's get to Josh in Novato. Going to be the final call on the board, and then we'll have some fun with numbers.
Josh in Novato has gone night-night.
Oh, Josh. I had 2 minutes for you, my friend. All right, well, Josh will catch up with you.
It's okay. I can't blame Josh. Like, there's a part of me, as happy as I am to be doing Dubs OT with you, JD, there's like a little part of me that thinks about my comfortable bed, and I'm like, it doesn't sound so bad right now.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And I didn't realize I'd kept him on hold a little bit longer than I wanted to there. As I look at the call screening page now here that we communicate on. All right, let's do fun with numbers, Greg.
Stand by.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, final couple of minutes here. Warriors 1-1 on the 5-game road trip. Overall 8-12 away from home this season. 8-12. That means the Warriors still have 21 road games remaining on the season. Warriors now 1-4 in overtime games. The Hawks wound up splitting the season series with the Warriors 1-1. Each team won at home. Of course, the Dubs winning last Wednesday at Chase. Atlanta returns the favor tonight. 33rd clutch game of the season for the Warriors. 5-point game, 5 minutes or less. And the Warriors they've dropped 4 straight clutch games now. 33rd clutch game of the season. And the Warriors, well, no, that's not right. Because I thought they were 15-14 at one point, but I guess the Philly game would have been a clutch game, right? So the Warriors wind up, or did the Philly game not end up being a clutch game?
I don't think it did. I think they actually stayed afloat.
No, I think you're right. And kind of going back, because at one point I thought I sort of had lost track in the middle of January, not to get lost in the weeds there, but I was looking at I think they'd actually climbed to 15-14 in close games. There was a point in which it was 15-14 or 13-12. We're actually a game over 500, but they're not in a good way in the close games now, all the way down to 15-18 in the 33 clutch contests. Warriors in Brooklyn on Monday, 3rd of the 5-game road trip. And we'll see if Moses Moody comes back. And we'll see Andrew Wiggins with the foot injury, whether or not he's able to come back and be effective with GP2 and Chris Paul coming back further on down the line. Stephen Curry, 60 points. He was 2 away from his career-high second 60-point game of his career. Had 62 back in January of 2021 against Portland. He had 22 in the fourth quarter. That's the most that he scored in a fourth quarter in his career in the regular season. 21 was his previous high for a fourth quarter, as Steph had 21 in the final frame there. 10 3-pointers, first time this season, and the 24th overall that he's made 10 or more 3-point field goals, and he leads the NBA in 3-point field goals made. Lester Quinones, career high for him. Brandon Pajemski, second straight double-double, 15 points, 11 boards. He is 4th among all rookies in double-doubles this season. And again, we mentioned the injury report. Andrew Wiggins was originally an ankle. It's now a foot, according to Steve Kerr, late in the second quarter. Didn't play in the second half. And Dario Saric missed his second consecutive game with illness. We'll see if Saric is back in Brooklyn on Monday night as the Warriors take on the Brooklyn Nets. All right. Greg, let's let everybody know in the YouTube chat and on the radio here what's going to be coming up over the course of the next week, because I'm going to be headed to Vegas tomorrow for Super Bowl coverage all week long here for KNBR, the sports leader. But we've still got your Dubs coverage for you. It's going to be in a little different way, though, because we are going to keep Sports Phone KNBR rolling with the early Warriors games next week. There's early games Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Brooklyn, Philly, Indiana. And so we're going to keep Sports Phone KNBR rolling up until 9 o'clock, and then we're going to go live for everybody, YouTube, for the YouTube viewers. We're going to go live, and we're going to do about an hour show. I'll be in Vegas. Greg will be in San Francisco talking about the game on that night, talking about the trade deadline. We may have to combine a game with the trade deadline on Thursday. We'll figure it out, but we'll let everybody know on social media what we're going to be doing. But we're going to be on YouTube after each game next week, and just keep keeping you rolling with the continued Warriors coverage, even from Vegas. And then we will have a full-blown live stream show for the next home game, which is coming up when the Warriors take on the Suns a week from tonight and the night before the Super Bowl. And I'm told Greg Silver's going to be out at Harmonic Brewing on that night, following the Dubs and the Phoenix Suns a week from tonight. So we'll stay tuned for all of that, as we've got you covered here with Dubs OT and Just Dubs in more of a podcast and streaming form for next week. And then when the NFL is done and the 49ers are over, we're jumping right back into it as we have here for the last 2.5 months on KNBR. So, Greg, great stuff. I know you were flying solo back in our San Francisco studios tonight. Tremendous effort by you. And we will talk to you on Monday night from Vegas.
Yeah, JD. Las Vegas. Thank you very much.
Oh, my goodness.
Big thank you to our Dubs devotees. If the logistics don't work out for me to go to Harmonic, I trust you all to start a nice mob on our behalf for the show. No, I'm kidding. It's going to be great.
Greg's going to be out at Chase next Saturday and then over at Harmonic for the next home game, no doubt.
So for all the people in the chat that said I deserved a free cold one, I might finally get my shot.
Yeah, you're going to get it for sure a week from tonight. Thanks to everybody in the YouTube chat as well. Uncle Looney, Land of the Hella, Drew Down, Buco Sports, Enrique Rivera, all the regulars. Love y'all. Big time. Rebel DeSounds, all of the regulars. Jimbo. Love y'all, shouting y'all out. Didn't have enough time to get to all of the comments, but again, we're going to be back Monday night. We'll tweet out the links. We'll put them on social media, and we'll have you covered here. And if anything breaks as far as news of the trade deadline, we'll do an emergency stream or an emergency podcast here on the Sports Leader. So for Greg, I'm JD. We'll talk to you Monday. Keep it locked right here, KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Steph Curry goes for 60, and it won't be enough as the Atlanta Hawks have won 4 in a row. And the Warriors 4-19 now in their last 23 overtime games, 11 straight overtime losses away from home.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
We got Steph Curry.
If that doesn't tell you the pieces don't fit, I don't know what else does. Oh, great! I hate it! The Warriors have wasted so many really good performances, but all signs right now are pointing toward Klay Thompson not being back next year.
The only flow that's going is down a toilet.
A lot of games have stung this year. We've had a lot of heartbreaking losses.
KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.